Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would sit down and do another video for you guys and gals. Let me get a sip of my water first. Get my beautiful radio voice going and let's talk about this. All right, this is kind of in response. I had some guy try to link to me. They didn't like the way I was performing a lift, which was a perfectly controlled lift. And they're trying to tell me, and they sent videos saying, you should be doing this is control. And they're linking some really super slow stuff. And we need to be very, very clear here. Almost no top bodybuilder in the world has ever done super slow training and been successful with it, first of all. So people who promote this need to understand this is not even the guys who are the most jacked historically. The research on super slow training has generally showed when you go really slow, you gain less muscle. Apparently it creates so much fatigue and so many metabolites that it interferes in the set with actually getting quality recruitment of the higher threshold motor units, which are the ones that are going to grow once you get done with the novice phase. So we need to be clear on that. So what do we mean? Control would be, all right, here's a bench, right? Lower it, bench, right? Lower it, bench. Super slow is when guys are trying to slow 5 seconds down, right? And then up. That doesn't work. The research has shown it causes less muscle growth. Nobody believes this. I don't know why there's anyone even promoting it. Same thing like a lateral raise, you know, they're like, there's a guy that's linking me and it's like all the way up like this. And then all the way down like this. That is not causing muscle growth. Strict and controlled would just be like this is it, right? Even like this. This is still, sorry, hitting the table, is still controlled. You're controlling the eccentric. So when people talk about controlling the eccentric, that's what they mean, right? They're not talking about 5 seconds because what did the research always show years ago looking at this? The sweet spot was between 1 and 4 seconds on an eccentric. Now people say, so why wouldn't you do 4? Because 1 to 2 seconds produce the same results. When you went really fast, you did need a little more volume, a little more work to get ideal muscle growth. That's kind of what was found. Wasn't perfectly ideal. But then we come over to when they started getting past 4 seconds, you start hitting 5 seconds and up, it just produced less muscle growth. Okay, this is what the experts are saying. And then on the concentric reps, there's no need to try to be slow on it. Intentionally slowing it down instead of just control is not helping your muscle fiber recruitment. It's just not. And people can talk about outside inertia, but it's not outside inertia if your muscles get the weight started. Okay? If you're cheating, yes. But if your pecs are doing the pressing, it's fine. Control it on the way down. Couple seconds, a 2-second negative will give you as much possible muscle growth as you're going to get from the eccentric. And then push it up fairly fast. Not saying we have to use compensatory acceleration on every rep, but this is what we have to look at. But people come up with these dingbat ideas and they need to understand time under tension is not an accepted scientific thing. People are like, well, it creates more time under tension, but that's not necessarily useful. Time under tension creates fatigue. It doesn't necessarily create more muscle fiber recruitment. And what we have to remember, what is the goal of the lifting? What is the goal of our lifting? What is the goal of any set on a muscle that you're trying to get to grow? Our goal should be to ideally get to the highest threshold muscle fibers and have them perform multiple repetitions. That is the goal. Our goal is to fatigue those. We don't care as much about the other fibers. People say, well, I do. Well, why? Go jogging. The evidence has shown over the years looking at it, the longer you've been training, the less the slowest twitch fibers can grow. Because again, keep in mind you have a wide variety of ranges. Okay, wide variety of ranges. You've probably like 20 subtypes. But if you break them into just the slow and the medium and the fast twitch, even for novice lifters, the fast twitch do grow more than the others. Okay? Like the slowest twitch fibers only grow about 10-15% in total size for a novice in their first few months in the gym, right? Whereas in like the fast twitch can grow up to like 60% bigger. Now people say, well, that's still, a fair amount, still some growth there. There is. and then the intermediate somewhere in between. But here's what happens. The longer you train, the more years you train, the more months, the more years you train, the more that ratio shifts. In other words, that's almost a defining characteristic of a more advanced lifter. When those other fibers don't grow. When the fibers in the middle and the bottom can't grow anymore, that's usually that's more or less, if we were to discuss, because people say, well, what defines is what lifts? Well, it's not just about programming, it's also about how advanced your musculature is. Those slower twitch fibers, and to some extent intermediate and others, have a finite amount of muscle growth, and that starts slowing down a lot. And they can actually reach their potential, the biggest they're going to get from lifting, assuming no change in your hormone environment, meaning you didn't get a lot older, hormones went down, or you didn't put other anabolic hormones into your body through some other method. Now that can cause some growth again in those areas, but it's not from lifting. From lifting, you're going to reach a point to where your faster twitch muscle fibers are the only ones that are going to grow. So any training, any set that does not stimulate those is probably not helping you grow. What do we mean stimulate them? If you're doing sets to where they're too fatigued to be recruited again, it's junk volume. You do any set that doesn't really get to them because other fatigue is created, meaning you're just going so slow with so light of a weight that it's all intermediate fibers, and those just seem to be restricted due to metabolites and other things occurring that prevent them from recruiting, because that can also be a thing. Or they haven't recovered enough from one session to the other to actually be recruited again sufficiently and to be stimulated. It's all junk volume. You're not growing from it. And I think that's a big factor into why this sort of training in the lab hasn't produced results. So when people are telling you to do this, they do not understand the body. They do not understand training response. And I promise you, anyone who's training exclusively that way, because obviously most people are doing mixed types of training. They're doing everything really slow and really light. If they're gaining muscle, it's probably only because of what they're putting into their body at that point. It's not from the training, because they're not sufficiently getting to those fibers. So when we talk about being controlled, we don't mean really slow. We mean having some control. You're not just letting the weight drop, right? In other words, your benching doesn't just go, right? Control, right? Rep, boom, control. Without cheating, without swinging. That's what we mean by control. We don't mean going super slow, because they're not the same thing in terms of training stimulus. Glad we got that out of the way. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.